I have sounds, y'all. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Ooh, I look so dark. Very nice. Like I have 3 hats. Maybe I should put lights on. But thank you again for waiting. This is, what is it, Tuesday, October 21st. I hope you had a peaceful day. I hope you had a peaceful night. Some of you, and I don't recall the username, but somebody with the photo of the young Jimmy Carter said that shared this live stream link to YouTube and said the best news analysis or whatnot nightly show is starting soon. It's like about an hour ago. Thank you so much. I just want you to know that you made my day and night and week and probably month too. So thank you so much for being here. I truly, truly appreciate you. And today we're not restricted in time. I'm late because we're, again, mayor's office in New York City was super accommodating, helping me to get accredited and to go tomorrow to the debate, right? The final debate where New York is, we're electing our mayor now. But because New York has such an influence to not just overall on United States, but also global economy specifically, I think it's very important to also ask some questions to those who are, projected to win or lose or whatnot. What are their plans and how do they plan to accomplish that? So those will be my straightforward questions, without assaulting anybody or talking about your opponent. What are you going to do and how are you going to do it? Because I think let's take away all the political talk, all this clickbaity headlines, and really focus on what is happening, right? Because as I mentioned yesterday, things start in one city and then they travel, and that affects a lot of other policymakers as well. And they're very helpful in working on that. This will be tomorrow at the Rockefeller Center at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if all goes well, the way it looks like it's going to go, I will be tomorrow reporting live from there. So I will see how I'm going to go live, probably before the debate from there. Maybe I'm going to ask some questions. Maybe some people will pass by. We will have some conversations. We'll talk about actual news and really, we'll be on the ground itself. And then I'll see how we can tune into the debate itself. So perhaps if you are not in New York or you're not in the United States, so you can watch it as well, because I think it will be an interesting conversation. Okay, enough about that. Again, let's just say hi. Hi, Sean. Hello. Happy Tuesday, gang. Yes, absolutely. Hello. Hi, Irene. Hi, Irene. Hi, Maggie. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for being Honest Plus subscribers. Thank you, Lindy. Thank you for joining this. I appreciate you. Now, before we go into the coverage that I did prepare. I want to talk about that Australian deal. Remember yesterday, Prime Minister Albanese from Australia was at the White House, and they were in this, I call it apprentice setting. When Trump is at the table, you don't see the cankles, you don't see the hands, but the media is in front of him, and it's a very, for him, empowering position where he apprentice, where he would say, "You're fired," straight to camera. And so the same positioning is there. And yesterday they were tooting this $8.5 billion deal with minerals and, all this that will help United States to combat China. Obviously, in context of that, Chinese government has passed the rule that any chips that are produced either with minerals sourced from China or using any type of technology or way, right, to produce those chips that comes from China would need to have a physical approval from Beijing, from Xi Jinping, to be sold to United States, regardless if these are made in, let's say, South Korea or Taiwan. Which, if they really were to impose that, that would screw us in more than one way. Right? And this, we did a deep dive on that. So if you're Onest Plus member, perhaps you joined today or recently, go ahead. There's deep dives. We already have 2. We began the week before, 2 weeks ago on Friday. We had a first deep dive on Project 2025 and what's next. And then also last week, we did deep dive on BlackRock, Blackstone, and also the connection to Chinese embassy. And there I presented this case study as to what would happen if China would really prohibit us to buy those chips, and what would BlackRock do since they sort of navigate the Western investment to China. And so my point yesterday was, unless we see documents, and this is from now on, listen, I don't report on anything this White House or this administration altogether reports unless we've seen the documents. I can quote those documents, I can analyze them, and I can present them to you so you can make your own opinion. And so yesterday I said, look, okay, we can talk about he said, she said, but we'll wait. And so, yes, we finally have this agreement. And I even posted like a snippet from Atlantic Council, email. This is the big deal. This is so important and so bombastic and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So in terms of bombastic, I'm not sure what's bombastic, but altogether, if it goes in line with this Middle Eastern deal, right? The peace deal, where it's like, oh, we believe in world freedom, and we believe in Palestinian freedom, and we believe in sun and the moon and the stars, and so if you take all this moon and freedom and stars and you go back to or down to what the hell they're doing, so essentially they created a group. Right? They created a group that will be led by our Secretary of Energy and their Secretary, Australian Minister for Resources. And this is called US-Australia Critical Minerals Supply Security Response Group. And so that group will start having meetings and discussing what could be done, what cannot be done, what do they need, what do they not need. Does it sound like agreement? No. Then blah, 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 group. And then what they're going to do? The participants commit to work in good faith to develop new or strengthen existing authorities and diplomatic tools that review and deter critical minerals and rare earth asset sales on national security grounds. If you didn't understand what the hell that means to you, you're good, because it means nothing. So they're going to talk and work in good faith. And so how committed are they? At the end, yes, you do have a signature by Trump and Albanese, but general provisions. Now, this is the legal point. Like, how binding is this, right? Because they guesstimated $8.5 billion. Trump tooted this, media tooted that, right? So, but the appropriate authorities of the participants will carry out post-project analysis and implementation. The specific content of post-project analysis is to be developed among the participants in accordance with their respective domestic laws. So it is to be determined, to be considered, to be planned. The participants will meet virtually or in person at the written request of the other participant within 10 days of the receipt of this request. So there's no meeting scheduled. One has to ask for it, and 10 days later, they're going to do it. Either participant may discontinue its participation in this framework by giving written notification to the other participant. Absent notice to the contrary from the discontinuing participant, any such discontinuation would be effective on the 30th day, blah, blah, blah. So if you don't want to be part of this, then write them in 30 days, you're not part of this. And finally, the framework sets out a policy and programmatic action plan that does not constitute or create rights or obligations under domestic or international law, does not give rise to any legal process, and does not constitute or create any legally binding or enforceable obligations, express or implied. Mic drop moment. So much to that woulda, shoulda, coulda, woulda, $8.5 billion, nothing. Okay? You make your opinion. So, but what I think, yes, some of you commented, it's not worth the paper it's printed on. No, it's not. What I think they do, because as a result of this shit show yesterday, the certain shares went up in price, right? Because that really, they know what they will be announcing, right? They do announce it. And then each side did profit, right? Because there was Australian companies as a result of that, and American companies did profit because their stock went up, right? And so somebody could have bought this shares, right? Knowing that this announcement will come, this goes up, then they realize nothing is happening, but they sold the shares already at that point. So it kind of looks like it has a purpose, but the purpose is not winning war with China or anything, but rather making quick cash. So altogether, what we're going to talk about today is, first, we're going to review our additional coverage of the No Kings protest. I explained that we have 48 wonderful Honest community folks who submitted coverage on the ground, and we're going to review every day a little bit to kind of feel better about ourselves. We're going to talk about Joe Biden finishing his cancer treatment, also White House being demolished, or at least the East Wing, and Trump talking about everything and anything at the luncheon. He hosted 2 luncheons today. Well, it was a luncheon and a dinner at the White House Rose Garden Club, where he charges, I guess, and Sarkozy went to jail for 5 years. So first, let's review some footage. Now, this was submitted by John Acosta. John, thank you so much. This is from Whole County, Georgia. This is No Kings protest, again, documented by John Acosta. You see here, resist, hands off. What's here? People, truth, laws, all matter. No fascists in America. Amen to that. Jim Crow never left. He just put on a MAGA hat, carried a Bible, and ran for office. I like it. I don't see this one, but it looks like it's a good gathering. Now, Trump has made $4 billion since the re-election. How are you doing? Exactly, right? MAGA dipshits. Dear MAGA dipshits. Everything Donald Trump says is bullshit. Well, see? That's from, No Kings. Yep. Autocrat. Sounds about right. Resist and persist. Exactly, right? And we have a little bloated, we have a doll. That's a Trump doll. Thank you again, John Acosta. This was from Whole County, Georgia. Thank you for your footage. Also, there's videos. Yes, there's a video. Take a look. We see it here. Oh, that's a drone footage. I love this. Amazing. And again, in today's newsletter that you will receive tonight, you have all this footage there, so you can review, find your favorite ones, and so on and so forth. And again, John, thank you so much for submitting this. Now, Trump started demolishing the East Wing of the White House yesterday. I didn't know it would touch me so much. I don't know. Maybe I'm a snowflake or whatever, but it just seeing history being taken apart in such a disgusting manner. I mean, what is East Wing? No, it doesn't have press office or, Oval Office in it, but it was built by Eleanor Roosevelt. It was also obviously coordinated and put together by FDR in, I think, 1942, I believe. And altogether, yes, it was East Wing, and it had portraits of all the first ladies. It had the tourist or like guest entrance there. But underneath was also this bunker where, that's why Roosevelt did build this, where they would be having this operational center where the president could be hidden, so to speak, if, something horrible were to happen. What are they doing now? Yeah, they taking this apart. Then they poured water on it so the dust would settle, and they would hold their rose garden slash parking lot luncheon and dinner tonight. And altogether, it's just taking history part by part. Why? Because they're building this 200, some people say 250, some say $200 million ballroom, but that thing will be larger than the White House itself. It's going to look ugly. Okay, I have the data here. Built in 1942 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the East Wing was designed to cover the bunker that FDR used during World War II, today known as the President's Emergency Operations Center. In July, Trump said, quote, "It won't interfere with the current building. It won't be," about the ballroom. "It'll be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to existing building, which I'm the biggest fan of. It's my favorite. It's my favorite place. I love it." He said that on July 31st of this year. And then that. Well, certainly then he was at that luncheon, he was talking about it today, saying that, oh, let's this beautiful, noise of construction. It smells like money. Here's quote, "You probably hear the beautiful sound of construction to the back. You hear that sound, right? Oh, that is music to my ears. I love that sound. When I hear that sound, it reminds me of money." President of the United States. Now, another president of the United States, at this point, former president, Joe Biden, has finished his cancer treatment. He rang the bell. We have the pictures of that as well. I posted it earlier. He finished a round of radiation therapy for prostate cancer. With his 83rd birthday approaching next month, Biden remains focused on recovery as he prepares for upcoming speaking engagements and public appearances. This was communicated by the Joe Biden and Jill Biden's office. Now, late night yesterday came out this news that, remember when I went to G7 in Canada? At that point, on day one, Prime Minister of Canada, Carney, put out the plan where he said, look, we need to mobilize and we need to use Russian assets and the profits of Russian assets to help finance Ukraine's defense, but also reconstruction efforts as well. And so he tied it together to G7, right? Making sure that, okay, one can veto it, but if we all unite together, it kind of would force also every single country to use the assets, the Russian assets, in that single country. And so since it became a tight type of issue, what they're talking about is altogether 140 billion euros in those Russian assets. And G7 kept negotiating since May on that. And then yesterday, last night, well, very late in the night, came the news that the United States has refused to support the Big Seven plan to transfer 140 billion euros in frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. This was reported on Bloomberg, or by Bloomberg. Meanwhile, European leaders and Zelensky today early morning, issued this statement. And essentially, in that statement, they are approving Trump's idea to freeze the conflict right there and then where the forces are in Ukraine, right? In simple terms, it means whatever is under Russian occupation remains under Russian occupation. This is frozen, and, we have a ceasefire type of thing. I mean, yes, if we think about Palestine and Israel, it kind of makes sense, and it's very easy to make sure Israel withdraws, because, the land is nowhere to compare, with the Russia and Ukraine and that scope of war and land acquired. But also they didn't have so many people in living under occupation, also surrendering their Ukrainian passports, accepting Russian nationality by force, or they won't be able to keep their housing, and yada yada yada. Children, 20,000 children plus, were deported to Russia. Families are separated. Women are raped. Men are raped. I can tell you all the stories, but people who live under this occupation, first of all, a lot of them are being killed and hunted by drones lately. There was this amazing grandmother who is, I think she was in her either late 80s or 90s, and she was a farmer. And about a month ago, it was this wonderful video of her where she spoke about the goats, that she has 20 goats and she takes care of them, and all the farmers who had cows have been killed in Ukraine. And it was this beautiful interview. And so Russians hunted her with a drone and killed her yesterday. I thought about, showing you the interview with her and whatnot, but it's very heavy. It's human safari with civilians. We're not talking about army or anything. That would be wrong. That would be criminal, but that is here inhumane, and it's disgusting on all different levels. And so when we talk about freezing this conflict, it kind of sounds logical, right? But we have to always understand what will be for these people under occupation. Russia is there to destroy Ukrainians, to make sure they're eliminated. It's not China taking over Taiwan so they can own the chips production. It's not, it's very comparable in this regard. Yes, indeed, between Israel and Palestine. They want the Palestinians to go disappear, essentially, and claim the land and build from Gaza. And we're going to talk about that too. But yeah, anyway. So in their statement, I want to read out the statement to you because I think we have to operate with facts and with actual documents. So this is the statement by European leaders, EU leaders, plus UK, plus Zelensky. We are all united in our desire for a just and lasting peace, deserved by the people of Ukraine. We strongly support President Trump's position that the fighting should stop immediately and that the current line of contact should be the starting point of negotiations. We remain committed to the principle that international borders must not be changed by force. By what? Pause here. But you contradict yourself, aren't you? You're contradicting yourself. If somebody is under occupation and is hoping for the good news, the only message they're getting is that Putin owns them. It doesn't matter whether you recognize them officially Russian or not. Excuse me, but Putin doesn't give a shit. Whether you support this idea or not, you freeze the conflict, you gave him the land, the people, do whatever you want with them. Because you accepted that at this point, right? Let's make it tangible here. Somebody comes to your apartment, they occupy your bedroom. And in the bedroom was grandma. When grandma is screaming, I'm under occupation, whatever, then they occupy half of your bathroom. Now you can take a shower, but you can take a shit. So we have this bit of situation. Then comes your neighbor, Donald Trump, and says, okay, let's freeze it right here. So now you have half of the bathroom and your bedroom is gone. And you say, well, I'm okay with freezing this, but I will never, ever see them as my roommate. I will never officially recognize them as my roommate. What does it matter whether you recognize or not recognize? You lost your bathroom, half of your bathroom. Now you're trying to negotiate this part, and you lost your bedroom and your grandmother with it. Is it fair? Is it okay? Because a lot of people were so excited about this goddamn statement. So, Russia, they say, Russia's stalling tactics have shown time and time again that Ukraine is the only party serious about peace. Therefore, we are clear that Ukraine must be in the strongest possible position before, during, and after any ceasefire. We must ramp up the pressure on Russia's economy and its defense industry until Putin is ready to make peace. We are developing measures to use the full value of Russia's immobilized sovereign assets, but US just vetoed it, so that Ukraine has the resources it needs. Leaders will meet later this week in the European Council and in the coalition of the willing but impotent formats to discuss how to take this work forward and to further support of Ukraine. So people under occupation who face daily rape and torture woke up to this. What these guys did is that, well, you showed Putin that what he does works. It works. Well, you're not excited about it, but it does work. You could have ended this conflict just by giving Ukraine enough to push these assholes out. Sorry for cursing, but I'm over it. Okay, so they did a meeting on Thursday. Zelensky might be attending in person, might be attending virtually. He hasn't decided yet. More pictures, more family photos where they all line up and there's a beautiful number. It's going to say Coalition of the Willing, Brussels. More hugs with Zelensky, more chants, Slava Ukrainian, everybody goes, Geroyam Slava, right? A lot of this, what will follow? The G7 situation with tying Russian assets with G7 failed. US vetoed it. It's called a thing. Now, will every single country utilize their Russian assets? Yes, they can. So unless Monsieur Macron shows up and says, I'm using Russian assets. Prime Minister Starmer says, I'm using Russian assets. Half of London is bought by Russians anyway. I'm using it. Ursula von der Leyen says, we're using Russian assets. Unless we hear that, the rest is as useful as that goddamn agreement, as you call it, with Australia. And then, let's freeze the conflict. Okay, let's freeze the conflict. We lost half of bathroom. We lost the the bedroom. Okay, let's freeze the conflict. We're going to use the time to get more resources. I can trust that Russia, together with Xi Jinping, Kim Jong-un, now the new full cooperation with Venezuela for 10 years, where now 20,000 Venezuelan forces are coming to Russia to help fight against Ukraine. And now the agreement with Colombia looming. They will use the time because they already have the infrastructure to use the time. You here, all you lack is courage. You couldn't find courage since 2014 when Ukraine was invaded. You couldn't find courage since 2022 when entire Ukraine began being bombed daily. So you think freezing this conflict will suddenly give you courage? Coalition of willing and impotent. I have faith. Listen, if they Thursday come out and say, hey, listen, we're writing it black on white. We're using this, we're using this, we're using this. We're going to do this. Perfect. I'll be first to say, hey, I'm happy. Bowing down, you're great, fantastic. And I'm hoping for this. I'm the interested party here in that to be. Now, Politico reported then kind of simultaneously to this statement, which is very contradictory, but let's review. They say Ukraine's allies are racing to reinforce Kyiv's position ahead of expected talks between Trump and Putin, fearing that a bad ceasefire deal could weaken Europe. Leaders are preparing 3 prolonged packages for Zelensky: funding from frozen Russian assets, additional weapons, new economic sanctions on Russia. European officials warned that any forced truce along current battle lines would be catastrophic. Quote, international borders must not be changed by force, declared Zelensky and European leaders in joint statement. Okay. Ukraine must be in strongest possible position before, during, and after any ceasefire. Okay, we read it earlier. Zelensky is expected to address Brussels summit next week. Okay, good. This week. So you know that this is horrific for you. You know that giving Donbass region, the entire Donbass region, with Donetsk and Luhansk, that Russia struggles to occupy since 2014. You know it's horrible. Why? Because if you give that to them, next thing is Kiev, because it's straightforward. Download a map. Kiev is taken, they go further. And they're going to make Ukrainians fight on their behalf. So that is a given. Now, we talked about the whatever. All I'm looking for is courage. Courage. One person. Who's going to be that star? Ursula, Emmanuel, Keir, who? Somebody. Come out, be courageous. Because other clowns will follow. Because you all follow each other. And right now, you're betting on the guy, Putin's biggest asset. You're betting on the guy who does not bet on you. He doesn't see you as a leader. You make pilgrimages. And tomorrow, Rutte, the Secretary General of NATO, is coming. Well, today, actually, on 21st, he already arrived in Washington, D.C. He's meeting with Trump tomorrow. There will be no media opportunity per NATO. Well, maybe Trump will decide that, again, another set of apprentices do, and Rutte will be the one, calling him all these beautiful names, talking about the peace in the Middle East and how there's going to be peace with everybody and hoopla. Maybe that will follow tomorrow. Maybe they will save this. So we'll see. Now, but then the news came out that, so what did happen last week, right? They announced Hungary meeting. Everybody is, oh my God, Hungary meeting. Putin met with Trump in Alaska, not just random spot, Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska, that was created to withstand Russia's aggression, possible Russia's aggression. Yes, he met there. FSB got access to everything to secure the land, right? Good. Next, Putin is coming to European Union to show you that ICC, International Criminal Court, and The Hague, doesn't really matter. Hungary is still part of the ICC, falls under their jurisdiction. They're wanting to leave. This will begin in 2026. But as for now, they still have to detain him. But they said they won't. They will make sure he's safe. Then Putin's decided on a route that's going to be through Serbia. Those countries greenlit this. Okay, good, fine. And then coalition says, we're supporting Trump's idea, freezing this, we want a ceasefire. We're going to freeze the conflict just where it is right now. We're not going to move any millimeter or inch right or left. Great. And then Putin's conversation the second one happens between Lavrov, foreign minister of Russia, horseface, and our Secretary Rubio. They spoke a day ago, because Rubio is now, instead of Witkoff is busy in Israel building Trump Gaza with Kushner. So Rubio is arranging this meeting through Lavrov, the meeting between Trump and Putin. And they had a first talk, and they have another talk. And in today's talk, after Europe supported Trump's idea, after Europe said, okay, you're going to come, permitted Hungary to receive Putin with red carpet treatment, even though Hungary's budget and economy completely depends on pace or on transactions from Brussels. But okay, all good. Lavrov informs Rubio that it's not very interesting for Putin to be meeting now with Trump, actually. So following the tense Rubio-Lavrov phone call, and there we have now two versions. Russia says, we said, we have to postpone those talks. Thanks for the invitation, but it's not that urgent. Our positions remain same. All that Putin wanted to accomplish is actually no tomahawks for Ukraine. For that, he called up, Trump and gave him this PR stunt a little bit. But we don't want to waste more time because we don't want to talk about ceasefire or whatever. We're not interested. It's not news. They're not interested in stopping the war. They're interested in broadening the conflict. Now, Rubio's part is saying that he had a tough conversation with Lavrov. He realized that, Russia is reluctant to give Trump the optics of a successful meeting. Will Trump get will he get the ceasefire? Could he proclaim that, yes, he solved this war? Russia says, no, they will not do it. So Rubio is expected tomorrow officially not to recommend Trump to be meeting with Putin in Budapest. But altogether, right? Let's go back to the facts. Russia made sure no long-range weapons are sold to Ukraine. Bing! 140 billion euros through G7 efforts are vetoed. Bing! Good. Next, they're going their way. And they're not interested in freezing this conflict. They were interested half a year ago, where Ukraine was pushing and they were lacking resources. But right now, no. So, do we think the meeting will happen next week in Brussels? In Hungary, I don't think so. Might be if Putin still sees that he hasn't accomplished something, but my imagination went into this the reality show Bachelor or Bachelorette, where you have to get a rose to go to the next round of dates. So now we're in this anticipation. Don't change the channel. Will Trump get the rose to meet with Putin on the next level of dates? We'll see. Let's see what you guys say. Hi, Mike. Hi, y'all. Hello. Hi, James. You're here. Awesome. Hi, Michelle. Oh, thank you. Thank you for watching and reading, and thank you. Maggie says it's crazy to give in to bullies. This will never stop. Giving in just emboldens Putin. Absolutely. Michelle says you can take a shower, but you can't take a shit, right? I mean, it's partial occupation of the bathroom. Weren't parts of Eastern Europe frozen like that, which divided countries under Russian occupation? Yes. Ask those people how that worked out. Exactly, Michael. Michelle says we're all over it. It's exhausting. Exactly. Trump is such a patsy when it comes to Putin, Maggie. Yeah, absolutely. And this is really very hard to explain. It's almost like it's some devotion. I don't know, because it's the influence that Putin has over him. It's just, for me, very difficult to comprehend. So I tend to compare it to some type of like bromance, romance, whatever, where you do stuff which later you're like, oh my God, what was I doing? That story. So it's under some type of spell or whatever they have on him is doing the deed. I don't know. But whatever it is, same as the leader of Portugal said, when he called Trump Russia's asset and was asked why, he said, because he acts that way. None of us wants to talk about it. It's freaking embarrassing. Now, then once this was announced that the meeting most likely ain't gonna happen, could be, still there's a potential, but not really. Poland came with a big statement saying that we will not allow you to pass over Poland, and we will make sure that our independent courts will rule in favor of making sure that we land the plane with Putin and we detain him. So it's a good thing, but for Poland, it was a very good diplomatic move when they knew that, well, he's not flying over Poland. The meeting is also now being questioned itself, and now you do this. But at least it was good optics. Good optics. Now, there is resistance inside Russia. They call this resistance from the Russians. I believe it could be, remember the spiderweb operations of Ukrainians coming in with big transporters, and then the drones flew and kind of bombed a bunch of stuff? Could be either way. But the fact is that they call it now partisans, and Russia's Leningrad region have blown up a military train, disrupting the key St. Petersburg-Pskov route, vital for Moscow's war logistics. This happened today. Ukrainian defense intelligence sources confirmed responsibility. Oh, already. Okay. Ukrainian defense intelligence sources confirmed responsibility for the operation. Done. So it was Ukraine. Good. Okay. Sometimes I allow sources to do updates before I publish newsletters. So yes, it was Ukraine. Very good, very good. It was, and this was, I wish it was in English. It's in Ukrainian. Maybe I'll find a way to translate it. But Budanov, who's head of Ukrainian intelligence, who never smiles, he's like the star of all the memes because of that. He is organizer of all these operations, and so he gave an interview where he was asked, like, is Prigozhin, do you believe that Prigozhin has been assassinated? And he goes like, and doesn't say anything else, and people are like, okay. And it was hilarious, but it was also very informational, so I'll find a way to translate it because it's in Ukrainian, and it's really worth watching because that's the guy who literally orchestrates all of this. Now, there is EU cyber sweep, which is fan freaking testing. So Latvian police working with Europol, we have Interpol, Europol. Estonia and Austria busted a massive fraud ring running about 50 million fake social media accounts. 7 suspects, primarily Russian-speaking Kremlin sympathizers, were arrested. This case underscores the industrial scale of the Kremlin's disinformation apparatus. Now, I do have a video of this thing. Do you want to see it? Let's see it. Can you imagine 50 million accounts? That's incredible. We have breaking news from Canada. Prime Minister Carney tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. Eastern will make live address on Canada's plan to build stronger economy in advance of 2025 budget. He will essentially disclose what's in the budget and what are the priorities. So tomorrow 7:30 p.m. Eastern in Canada, in Ottawa, Prime Minister Carney will speak on the budget tomorrow. So now, Sarkozy, so some countries do manage to do certain things correctly. So amid cheers and screams and admiration and sort of mixed feelings, former French President Sarkozy, who's 70 now, began serving a 5-year prison sentence for accepting Libyan campaign financing from Gaddafi. He was accompanied by his wife, Carla Bruni. Take a look how they sort of exited their house, went to jail in Paris. That's a really, this comment, Maggie, thank you again for being Honest Plus subscriber. You mentioned exactly the same thing that I had discussed in the conversation today, that yes, Trump seems to be sharing the opinion of the person who last spoke to him. I was thinking, like, when they say a duck is born, whatever the first thing it sees, it's a mama. It could be anything. So that's like the last person he listens to, that's the opinion of his. And that's exactly. And then who's adding? Michael says, yes, Maggie, it does seem like that. And then I think that why they don't let Trump meet with Democrats alone, he needs Vance. Exactly. So, and also connect that to our first deep dive when we talked about Curtis Yarvin saying that Trump accomplished only 0.1% of everything we wanted to accomplish with Project 2025. And we are looking where to escape to because he's not going to finalize all the plans that we had. Hence, it's not going to be that stable for us to be here, right? And if you haven't watched it, check it out. Speaking of Project 2025, we're going to finish today by, listen, I'm a nerd. So I had this bright idea. Let's read Project 2025 again and mention and pay attention to foreign policy. And so I looked up and summarized what they say about Venezuela and Russia. And you're going to be stunned. I let you see where we are on this timeline. But it's like, we live according to that goddamn plan. But that's the last thing for today. Now, here's some exclusive reporting from Washington Post. Washington Post did an investigation and found out that Secretary of State Rubio pledged to expose MS-13 informants in exchange for access to El Salvador's most notorious prison. The deal is a deep betrayal of U.S. law enforcement, said Douglas Farah, a contractor who investigated MS-13 operations. The reporting, based on dozens of U.S. and Salvadorian sources, reveals Rubio's role in advancing Trump's hardline foreign policy and leveraging ties with Latin American leaders. So essentially, those who were informants for the US. They betrayed them to close ties with El Salvador. Hence, this many deportations there. In other news, Japan has elected its first lady prime minister, first female prime minister. On one hand, yes, it's step forward. Sanae Takaichi, 63, of Japan's Liberal Democratic Party, has become the country's first female prime minister. But that's where the progress sort of ends and the excitement ends. She's known for hardline nationalist views, admiration of Margaret Thatcher was okay, and love of heavy metal, fine. She declared, everyone will work like draft horses. As for me, I'm removing the term work-life balance from my vocabulary. Her career has been marked by controversy, including photos with neo-Nazi leader and comments of broadcasters for political bias. She also is the one who endorsed 9/11. She says, my goal is to become a Japanese Iron Lady. So ultra-nationalistic, far-right, doesn't like United States, still speaks obviously about us bombing Japan and all this, which is obviously has its reasons, but altogether it will isolate Japan. She, by the way, she supports Ukrainian independence, and she says if Ukraine falls, everything will be sort of the world order, and especially UN Charter will be violated, and sort of this will lead to more wars, because then other leaders of who share such interests and desires and ambitions will see that by force you can redefine borders. But that's where the support for Ukraine ends. She says, well, given that, we have to worry about Japan, because we do have other threats, we have other problems here in the Indo-Pacific, so we shouldn't be collaborating, cooperating. So it's becoming again anti-globalist agenda. And again, if you're Onest Plus member, go listen to our deep dive last week, because this is the key of the BlackRock's agenda set a couple of years ago. It was 2021 anti-globalist thing. Then I explained at the dinner about 3-4 weeks ago during UNGA 80. I was at the MAGA dinner where Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, introduced President Macron, spoke about anti-globalist agenda, spoke about nationalizing resources, and all that. So it sort of very much aligns with that. And, kind of, you see the global interest in not just far-right agenda and fascism altogether, because that's a tool to cause anxiety and fear to live your life and pursue your democratic desires. This is a tool to keep people contained, right, in their actions and dreams and plans. But what they try to do is essentially separate each country, right, and its resources. Now, good news from Greenland. Greenland was considering whether to choose France or to choose US, represented by Musk, when it comes to their connection capabilities. And so they decided against Musk's Starlink. Greenland's telecom company TUSAS selected French satellite operator Eutelsat over Elon Musk's Starlink to provide internet to its remote regions. Quote, we are pleased to continue working with TUSAS to connect remote communities, said the VP of the French company, Cyril Dujardin. The decision strengthens Europe's footprint in Arctic communications and weakens US influence in the region, which is quite important. Now, I want to introduce a new rubric called Quotes That Don't Need Context. Shall we? Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell, when asked why Pete Hexa's tie looked like the Russian flag, he said, quote, your mom bought it for him, and it's a patriotic American tie, moron. And this is the second time that this administration is doing your mama jokes, and the second time that they do the your mama jokes to the Huffington Post reporter. So this travels, as I mentioned. Now, Trump was at the luncheon at the Rose Garden, and he said, quote, That was the swimming pool where Jackie would say, I hear women inside. Are women inside? This is part of the movie. The Secret Service, no, ma'am, there are no women inside, but I hear women inside. No, ma'am, you have to move along. Okay. Then he says, somebody said, you are the third best president in the United States. This was on television, third best. Who are the first two? George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And then he continues that he was very pissed at this anchor who said it. And then he goes, no, they didn't put out 8 wars. We put out 8 wars. And then ultimately he talked about they're going to lose Medicaid, talking about Democrats. They're going to lose Social Security. They're going to lose Medicare. All of those things are going to be gone because the whole country would be bankrupt. With us, it's the opposite. I also have some videos, so let's take a look here. Oh, he talks about the building the ballroom and how he loves the sound of money.
And most excitingly, on the other side, you see the fence and the wall. We're building a world-class ballroom. You know, for 150 years, they've wanted a ballroom here. We don't have a ballroom. We have a little cocktail area, but we don't have a ballroom. The East Room, it's called, is a very small cocktail area. It holds about 88 people if it's tight. And I said, if I do this again, I'm going to get a ballroom built, and we're putting up our own money. With the government is paying for nothing. You probably hear the beautiful sound of construction to the back. You hear that sound? Oh, that's music to my ears. I love that sound. Other people don't like it. I love it, Josh. I think when I hear that sound, it reminds me of money.
Another one.
So we did the Presidential Walk of Fame from the great George Washington all the way to, well, I think we have to rate him above me. So less than great, less than George. Somebody went up there, they say, you're the third best president in the United States. This was on television, third best. And they said, who are the first two? George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. And I got extremely angry at this man. You know, you can't. It's going to be tough to beat, Mr. Senator. It's going to be, John. It's going to be very tough to beat Washington and Lincoln, but we're going to give it a try, right? Hey, they didn't put out 8 wars, 9 coming. All right, we put out 8 wars, and the 9th is coming. Believe it or not.
We don't believe it, but.
After your pivotal changes to the Senate rules last month, as a result, this is what you did, the unprecedented obstruction by the Democrats. We've confirmed more than 175 public servants, people that are phenomenal, to key posts, and that's just been over the last couple of weeks.
So essentially, he here praises the shutdown and sees how that time is used to appoint MAGA agents, so to speak, to finalize his agenda. And then another thing I want to show you, this very weird and wrong on so many levels moment that happened during the visit of the Australian Prime Minister. This was again in this apprentice setting at the White House, where Trump was told that the ambassador of Australia was not really approving of his actions too much. And check it out how he reacted.
Go ahead. There's been concern in Australia that it's taken 9 months to get this meeting. Have you had any concerns with this administration, with its stance on Palestine, climate change, or even things the ambassador said about you in the past, the Australian ambassador?
I don't know anything about him. I mean, if he said bad, then maybe he'll like to apologize. I really don't know. Did an ambassador say something bad about him? Don't tell me. I don't. Where is he? Is he still working for you?
Yeah.
You said bad?
Before I took this position, Mr. President.
I don't like you either. I don't, and I probably never will. Go ahead.
You said something bad. I don't like you either, and I probably will never have. But he still says that he is not the king.
I'm not a king. I'm not a king.
And I agree, because you are a queen. I believe that the next protest should be no queens, because that here is a queen. Speaking of a queen, J.D. Vance is in Israel, and he speaks too much. Too much. What are you revealing? You're revealing your secrets? Can you catch it? Take a look.
Well, Jared's the investor here. I'm not going to give you a percentage, but look, what we've seen the past week gives me great optimism the ceasefire is going to hold.
Jared is the investor. We thought he was the guy who, the Chippendale, the Witkoff, and Jared Kushner, who traveled to Israel for shits and giggles because they believe in world freedom and they do it just for fun as a contribution to our beautiful government and world peace. Now turns out Jared is investor. Oh, JD. Maggie says, admiring Maggie Thatcher is definitely not a plus. Yeah. And then she says, oh, you got to work like a horse and all that. Which actually also reminds me, hi, Tony. Hello. That mascara is scaring, right? Yeah. Which reminds me about Maggie Thatcher and we're working. If you're from Germany, you probably have heard it. Over the weekend, Chancellor Merz has put so many statements in German that, oh, we're going to give dignity back to those on pension. Because we believe that you work hard and then you're on pension, you're not working, you don't have your dignity anymore, you don't have a goal in life, so we're going to extend the working age, so we're going to give you dignity back. Just say you need more tax money because you got to build up defense and, everybody has to chip in so we can finally, maybe this time really knock Russia out. So that fascism from that part was not going to infiltrate our, society. Just phrase it the way you do, because we understand why this is happening, but the way of selling it is kind of interesting. And finally, here's former Lithuanian Foreign Minister Landsbergis on Russian attack on Sumy in Ukraine. He goes, this was not a mistake. A mistake is something like imposing tariffs on penguins. What we saw in Sumy is a deliberate continuation of genocidal invasion. Our real mistake is not helping Ukraine enough. And by the way, he was considered to be Secretary General of NATO alongside Kaja Kallas. And then somehow Rutte was proposed by Trump, who at that point was just former president. But that's who advocated for Rutte to take on that role. Now, national news, Trump openly bragged about consolidating power. Okay, I showed you that video, 175 Trump nominees. Very interesting. So I want to talk about it because this person, Chris Larson, is Wisconsin state senator. He doesn't have, and it was mentioned, he cannot get on television. He cannot get on any major media network who would have an interview with him. So I want to amplify this message. He raised alarm today over explosive federal spending at the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency. Quote, ICE is stockpiling arms, including chemical weapons, guided missile warheads, and explosive components. The spending dwarfs anything we've ever seen in the agency. It's a 700% increase. At this point, they have bought worth, I think, $77 million worth of small arms, plus there's chemical weapons, guided missile warheads, explosive components. So the president, he says, is building an army to attack his own country. At least 170 U.S. citizens have already been detained by immigration agents, including children. There is no telling how far this administration will go if Congress does not act. Again, this is a quote by Chris Larson, a Wisconsin state senator. I will try to have a conversation. Now, but meantime, appeals court handed to Trump administration this legal victory, ruling that it can deploy National Guard troops to Portland despite strong objections from state leaders. Last week, a judge had extended temporary restraining order blocking the deployment while the appeal played out. Trump cited protests outside Portland's Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility, those with frogs, as justification for sending troops. The ruling follows Trump's Sunday threat to send the National Guard to San Francisco, continuing his broader crackdown on cities he claims are plagued with crime. Now, shutdown, obviously, it's day 21. As the government shutdown enters now third week, fourth week at this point, the effects are spreading. Senate staffers have been told they will go without pay for the duration of the funding lapse. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees remain furloughed, while back pay is expected once the shutdown ends. Trump has refused to commit to providing it for all workers. Now, meanwhile, if you're planning on traveling, this matters. The TSA reports staff shortages causing longer airport delays as air traffic controllers call out sick and or seek part-time work to make ends meet. Transportation Secretary Duffy said the situation will worsen. Quote, air traffic controllers should expect to stop getting a paycheck next week if the shutdown continues. And as you see, I mean, this is part of this type of agenda. So if you're traveling, please make sure to double check. Now, what we couldn't double check yesterday is anything Amazon related, specifically any company that would rely on Amazon web services, the so-called AWS. Hulu was down, Amazon itself as well, Snapchat, Facebook, Fortnite, Coinbase. Cybersecurity experts told CNN there is no sign of cyber attack. Past failures of this scale were caused by faulty updates or injected bad code. So it's been fixed already today, but yesterday, if something went wrong, this was related to that. Norm Gilbert just found you, Olga Subbed. Oh, thank you so much, Norm. Thank you. I appreciate you. Hi, Solar. Wannabe was born in New York. Oh, you guys are talking about something? It seemed that Boris Johnson wanted to be, oh yeah, that's the comment. Okay, so Solar said before, agreeing with the last person Trump speaks about, that's exactly his opinion. What we discussed before, this was often said about Boris Johnson, ex-prime minister during COVID in the UK. Yes. Boris Johnson, born on Upper East Side of Manhattan. Yeah. So, the word that Trump will not pronounce, acetaminophen. RFK Jr. and his worm are demanding through FDA, Kenvu, or whatever you pronounce it, the company that produces acetaminophen and, it's a maker of Tylenol, essentially. They're demanding, the FDA demands them to amend the label and to put on the label that acetaminophen use in pregnancy and is connected to autism and ADHD in children. And so Kenvu is fighting, and first of all, they're challenging this FDA proposal. They said, quote, acetaminophen is one of the most studied medicines in history. Adoption of the proposed labeling revisions would be capricious and contrary to law. So many experts agree the FDA's evidence remains inconclusive, though the Trump administration has called for tougher warnings. So I guess, listen, Kenvu, or whatever you pronounce yourself at, either you're going to cash in and give percentage to Trump, because recently he wants 10% of every company operating in the United States and even Canadian companies partially, or you got to sue them. And then you settle and you will pay again still, because that's where we are. I mean, don't put that on the label. That's kind of weird. But remember, Musk sponsored the election, spent $250 million to get the presidency. Yeah. And then he marched with his kid who was cleaning his nose and spreading this all over Resolute desk in the White House, the Oval Office. So far that, Trump demanded that desk to be renovated or whatever. And then Musk was gone from the White House because he overstepped his limits. He bought the election and wanted to be praised as a king. But, you elected a king. So now it's getting worse. We just heard that, yes, Greenland decided against using Starlink, but entire budget of SpaceX, which is very closely connected to Tesla as well, because he's mixing everything. It's all this X core that connect the owner of X Corporation, I think, that is owning all the companies that he has. So they're all tied to one sort of moneymaker, so to speak. And that moneymaker makes money off of government, right? Very much connected to the creation of the Space Force during Trump's first presidency and whatnot. But here, that's where the money comes in, specifically for SpaceX. And that money was tied into SpaceX flying to the moon. That big black rocket that they're shooting and it's falling and it's like exploding constantly. the heavy booster, whatever. Well, this is now working against Musk. So if you ask me again, this is my take and my opinion. This is more connected to Musk's behavior and his disconnect from Trump than actually the accomplishments or the lack thereof from SpaceX, because we don't really have any other competitors that do achieve something that SpaceX doesn't. So all of this is sort of like, like just a imagination at this point about going to the moon, especially with NASA being under Duffy's supervision and whatever. So, but Transportation Secretary Duffy told CNBC that SpaceX is behind schedule on its $3 billion NASA contract to land astronauts on the moon using Starship rocket. Yes, that ugly thing is the Starship rocket. NASA is now considering other companies for the 2028 mission. By whom? Who will replace Musk in this space grift? Jeff Bezos and Blue Origin, the penis rockets. So the news boosted shares of SpaceX rivals, Rocket Lab plus 1.6%, because they all believe that, well, not SpaceX, could be anybody, right? Jeff Bezos, and maybe he partners with somebody else. Also Intuitive Machines plus 4% and Karman plus 4.3%. The context here is that SpaceX's Starship exploded in 3 of the last 5 tests, and critics say its experimental refueling and lunar landing approach could delay NASA's program, right? This program to land on the moon. Now, some former NASA officials told the New York Times they don't expect SpaceX to be ready before 2032. But then the question is, will Jeff Bezos be ready? So Michael says, I didn't know that. Oh, about Manhattan-born. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Quick national news. A federal judge in Chicago questioned officials about whether Trump administration violated a court order by using tear gas during immigration enforcement operations. The administration offered to steer more federal money to select universities if they signed a compact aligning with Trump's political priorities. Nearly all refused. B-52 bombers escorted by Marine Corps F-35s flew off the coast of Venezuela on October 15th. I did report on that. And now we have a name for this operation. It's called Bomber Attack Demonstration, according to now Pentagon disclosures. A Republican-led congressional committee is now seeking testimony from former President Bill Clinton as part of Jeffrey Epstein's investigation, the chairman said Tuesday. How about Ghislaine Maxwell? I'm in favor of prosecuting everybody connected to this case. I don't give a who voted for whom and who was what. But that lady that is about to be pardoned, who's doing yoga now in jail. No? Okay. The Federal Reserve is expected to cut its key interest rate by 25 basis points next week, and then again in December, according to a Reuters poll of economists. Now, developers of an 800-mile Alaskan gas pipeline that was forbidden before under Biden and is now tooted by Trump, so to speak, a project championed by Trump, expected to complete a key engineering and cost study by the end of the year. This was said by Interior Secretary Burgum yesterday. Amazon plans to automate 75% of its operations, according to internal documents, potentially replacing over 500,000 jobs with robots, which China already does. As big tech races to build AI data centers, several low-income communities report blackouts and water shortages tied to energy overuse. And that's heavily reported in Texas. And if you're there, please let me know if that's rumor is correct. Auto loan delinquencies are rising, signaling financial pressure among lower income Americans. And Disney Plus and Hulu cancellations. Remember when we all canceled this because they canceled Jimmy Kimmel? So they surged to twice the normal rate last month after Disney temporarily pulled Jimmy Kimmel off the air. So follow the money, honey. Now, quick global news. American officials are increasingly concerned that Benjamin Netanyahu could dismantle the Gaza ceasefire deal. but they also encourage him to dismantle the ceasefire deal. So it's very interesting. Now, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, a U.S.-run aid effort, suspended operations after hundreds of Palestinians were killed attempting to retrieve aid, according to Gaza's health ministry. Meanwhile, Australia launched a diplomatic protest after a Chinese fighter jet released flares dangerously close to an Australian surveillance plane in the South China Sea. And this is, that part of the world is prognosed by many analysts to be this next point of conflict, of possible conflict. Yes, Trump confirmed the U.S. will go full steam ahead with a submarine pact alongside Australia and the UK, ending month of uncertainty. I believe he forgot as soon as he said it, so yeah, prove it again. Iraq's Prime Minister said a small U.S. military contingent will remain to coordinate with forces in Syria against ISIS. And Nordic defense leaders warn industry partners that the new weapon systems must have proven performance in Ukraine. So essentially, Nordic countries are not buying any military equipment unless it has been proven effective in the fight of Ukraine, which obviously, benefits Ukrainian army as well. They have the testing, and then they also have essentially more equipment. Now, Sweden advanced plans for a next-generation combat aircraft, with Saab developing a hybrid system that could combine crewed and uncrewed platforms. Now, some things to sports. Congratulations, Canada. The Toronto Blue Jays reached their first World Series since 1993. Did you watch it? I did watch it. Defeating Seattle 4-3. They'll face the Los Angeles Dodgers, and who are the current winners, right? Now, NBA season is beginning tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Literally now. Now it's 7:31. So LeBron James enters his 23rd season as new international stars debut. And NFL former running back Doug Martin died in police custody in California this weekend at the age of 36. His family said they had sought medical help before his death. And in soccer, after World Cup, after FIFA, FUFA, FAFA, we're now also bidding to host Women's World Cup. The US, Mexico, Costa Rica, and Jamaica announced a joint bid to host 2031 Women's World Cup. Canada, very smart, at this point is staying away from this. Now, remember how I just mentioned that Russia stole 20,000, as we know of, 20,000 Ukrainian kids. And they also have this sort of online store when you can look at the kids, their ages, what they like to eat and read and do, and their character, and are they social, introvert, extrovert, and all that. So you can choose them as a dog type of thing, or a cat. And that website does exist, and this dossier or whatever, but now all of us are blocked from it. So you have to be physically in Russia. They somehow chose also a way to bypass VPN. So while you are in Russia, you have access to it. If you're outside of it, you can't. But the head of all this is the person who has been sanctioned by both Europe and Ukraine. It's Russia's presidential commissioner for children's rights. Believe it or not, her name is Maria Lvova-Belova. Sounds like a fish. Admitted to abduct. She gave an interview today where she, in that interview, admitted abducting Ukrainian children. One of the war crimes for which the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for her. And there in that story on the national state television in Russia, she boasted that the child whom she adopted, she stole this child from Ukraine. The parents are living in Ukraine. They're existing. It's not, a foster home child or whatnot. Literally stole it from the loving family. And she complained that the child loved Ukraine, that the kid was listening to Ukrainian music, chanting Slava Ukraini, wanted to only speak Ukrainian, didn't want to do anything Russian. But then she says through methods, whatever those methods are, they managed to break him and change his attitude. for this child, whatever. She, by the way, went to Kremlin with the kid, got flowers, medals from Putin because she's the headliner of this children project. Now, India's climate target. India is set to propose 2045 emissions peak in its updated climate target, Bloomberg reported, and the plan envisions 11% of total energy from nuclear by 2070 and relies heavily on carbon capture for industry. And the official submission to the UN remains still pending. So at this point, India will be ahead of us. So new tariffs are coming. This time on Nicaragua, the Trump administration proposed 100% tariffs on Nicaraguan products and the removal of trade benefits over labor and human rights abuses. Nicaragua currently enjoys 0 tariffs on most exports to the U.S. Well, there's also Caribbean diplomatic fallout. Colombia recalled its ambassador to the U.S. as a result. Remember, the president of Colombia talked about this bombing of fishermen and called for courts to examine what the heck Trump is doing. Trump said, no, the president Petro of Colombia is the drug dealer himself and all that. So, as a result, Colombia recalls their ambassador from the U.S. after clashing with Washington over the drug trade and the U.S. military Caribbean operations. The 2 survivors from recent U.S. boat strike were repatriated, one back to Colombia, one to Ecuador. Ecuador released its citizen without charges. Colombia vowed prosecution. So, coup leader Colonel Michael Rondrianirina in Madagascar was appointed businessman Harin Salama Raja Onarivelo, as the prime minister, praising his international experience. So ousted President Rajolina now is in exile, has refused to step down. So essentially that a coup, military took over. Now military is proclaim themselves president, appoints vice president, but the actual president is refusing to step down, but is elsewhere. So that's what's happening in Madagascar. Now, China-UK embassy dispute. Again, the deep dive last Friday. Last time I'm calling you to watch it. Please do. There is a huge embassy that China plans to open in the middle of London. It's 6 buildings altogether. It has tunnels. The tunnels are connecting to Scotland Yard. They're connecting to fiber cables. It represents such huge national security threat for UK, which is like horrific to even think about. But China bought that complex, and they want to build the world's biggest embassy. And all the governments have, before Starmer, all prime ministers spoke against it. Starmer said, let's reconsider it because he wants to warm up to China. And China kind of thought they would be deciding today. Starmer said they will be deciding on December 5th. Today, they postponed it to December 10th. So, obviously, they have espionage concerns. If you watch that deep dive, it's towards the end of the video. It's like, you'll see it. It's like obnoxious to even imagine. But obviously, China said, we're going to retaliate. No trade for you. We're going to do whatever we want to do unless you approve this embassy, which would be not just for UK, a horrific thing, but for Europe itself. Because it's just also once the embassy is proclaimed embassy, because yes, they already own those 6 buildings, but if they claim this officially to be embassy, then everything that comes in and out of it and what's inside and underneath and on top has then diplomatic immunity, because an embassy belongs to the country that is owning this embassy and land and all of it. So then they can't even investigate anything. So I hope UK government kind of overthinks this again. Now, the Netherlands plans to deport migrants from African nations to Uganda under a new preliminary agreement similar to one brokered by the Trump administration. See, when I say this circus travels, right? Because people get excited. They get ideas from all this. So, Migration Minister David van Wiel said human rights would be monitored closely, but acknowledged likely legal challenges. You don't say. Now, deep dive to Project 2025, and I'll let you go. So, what do you think Project 2025 has to do with Venezuela? It actually lists the step-by-step manual what to do with Venezuela. So probably if you haven't been living under the rock, you know what happens in Venezuela, right? We're bombing the fishermen. We say Maduro is a dictator. He is a dictator. But we also are supporting the what we call democratic, but she's extra far right leader Machado, who's supposed to win this election and won the election, but Maduro remained in power. But Machado really speaks openly now, aside from willing to give her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump, and joining the event on November 5th and 6th in Miami alongside Trump, sort of like a business event. I've been posting about it. I want to deep dive and see who's behind that event, and then I will cover it in more detail. But altogether, she joined Trump Jr.'s podcast, and she said, if I'm leader of Venezuela, I'm going to give national resources, give them up for sale, and I will make sure U.S. makes a lot of money with it. So this is where we are, okay? And this is what Project 2025 says. I read it. Here's summary on Venezuela. First, energy dominance, expanding sanctions on countries importing Venezuelan oil. Ding. Drug war justification, military strikes on suspected Venezuela-linked smuggling vessels. Bing. Immigration, termination of TPS, temporary protection status, for Venezuelans, placing hundreds of thousands at risk. Bing. Aid cuts, cancellation of democracy, health, and humanitarian grants. Ping. Rhetoric, branding Maduro's government as narco-terrorist regime. Ping. Now, what do you think Project 2025 says about Russia? It does. It actually does. So, first, it defers policy on Russia, and this is Russia only, because they speak also about Africa, they speak also about other countries as well, right? Regions, countries, continents. But on Russia specifically, Project 2025 defers policy to presidential discretion, calling the issue divisive, so only the president has to decide on Russia. Also, it introduced plans to transform NATO to make Europe take the lead in defense. Ping. Reduces U.S. foreign aid and multilateral engagement. You say it got canceled day one. Ping. Expands nuclear arsenal, risking escalation with Moscow. I mean, they're talking about collaborating in the Arctic, so what are we talking about? We went further here. And prioritizes U.S. interests first, while critics warn it emboldens Putin because we pull away from NATO. Which leads me to this. Onest Plus folks, subscribers, I'm going to meet on Zoom off the grid last Friday of this month and of every month. And I will send you a link. Please give me your email because YouTube doesn't give it to me. We're going to be meeting on Zoom. If you also covered the No Kings protest, you will be invited. If you in any way supported Onest, you will be invited. So I'll send you the emails. And there I'm going to talk about the documents I've seen and what I saw when the European leaders came to the White House, to the Oval Office, as to what would be next for NATO and U.S. involvement in NATO. Not something to report here, but we're going to talk about it. Because this here is a ping for Project 2025. So experts across security and policy at that time warned that Project 2025 would accelerate the erosion of U.S. alliances, strengthen autocrats, and undermine global stability. So my question to you is, how far along are we in Project 2025 timeline? Because it sounds like, and it was all there, you know? This is what pisses me off the most. People who trust in Trump and all this, like, oh, we support, we hope he changes his mind. He said, blah, 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 blah. This was there. It was written. It's public all day, every day. At this point, for more than a year. He goes by this manual. What are you talking about changing mind? It's here. And he's praising today at this whatever, Rose Garden, lunch, dinner, whatever. He's praising Russell Watt, who wrote this thing, as Darth Vader. And he's like, oh, Vader. Yes. This part of my life I spent in Germany, so I watched all these movies in Germany, so I pronounce things German way because I grew up there. So my apologies if I mispronounce something. But he is like praising this guy for cutting everything. And so we're living according to this manual. Nothing, but don't forget that this first 180 days in that manual. So what's next remains to be seen. Now, to finish on a good note, I really, really want to show you a video. Again, I'm not a Catholic myself, I'm Christian Orthodox, but I want to show you Pope Francis, what he said about the two sense of evil, so to speak, in today's world. It has nothing to do with religion, so to speak, or not much, or it doesn't affect what you believe in and whether you go in any way to religion or you're not religious at all. Just listen to it from the perspective of, it's a wise guy saying something that actually matters. Okay? So please take a look. It's 2 minutes.
I think to all of us. And so the missionary experience, I think, opened my own heart and mind to a kind of understanding that we need to work together in the world to make some kind of difference. And many big challenges. I'm convinced that the technology, the production capacity that we have in the world today, there should be no one who goes hungry. And yet, we know very well, as a matter of fact, that's one issue. The violence that exists. The man from, what's your name? Hannah, who said, if this many people can live in this small of a space and be at peace and become friends in the world that is so large, why can't we do that? And of course we could, but it takes a will to do that, and it takes a strong sign and witness of so many people, including yourselves, to spread that message. And we as missionaries, of course, try to do that. There are so many other people who try to do that as well. But I always remember, too, a line from St. Augustine, here we are in Austria, who said, if you want to change the world and make the world a better place, you have to begin by changing yourself. And I hope and pray that for each one of you, that was a lesson that you've also learned during this time. How do I become a better person? How do I become a promoter of peace? How do I become one who lives really committed to promoting justice, fraternity, understanding, and respect for one another? And I do that because of my faith in God and because of the Gospels. I believe Jesus Christ taught that very clearly, and he saved us all through his own suffering on the cross, and he invites us to imitate his life, to serve one another. And with that kind of attitude, I think we can indeed change the world. So, thank you.
And lastly, White House just asked not to share a picture of the White House demolition. It's this one. Make sure not to share it or whatever. It's horrific. This is our White House? Where is the East Wing? What is this? They're pouring water and their flags. This is the East Wing. Are they taking down more than just East Wing? Are we looking inside White House's behind? What is it? Yeah, it's East Wing and it's just completely taken down. Anyway, they asked not to share it, not to show it, and obviously, I got to show you what not to show. So, don't show it. Horrific. Okay, done. I will let you know what we're doing tomorrow with the mayoral. If it all works, I start reporting from there, bushy-tailed and all, and then show you the debate. If I'm not there, then I'll be live here. Okay, so just stay tuned. And also, your newsletter is going to come right now. So if you're new, please go to onestnetwork.com, onestnetwork.com. It's in the description of this video, or in every profile of all my social media platforms. Or if you're on Substack, search for Onest, O-N-E-S-T. It's free, Monday to Friday. All the news are in written format, straight to the point. It's actual news, national and global politics, also cover Canada, also cover US and EU and whatnot. You've heard it here. So you can have factual news and you can share it and you can read it. Most importantly, please read it so you can make better decisions. And if you're again new here, if you want to join our Honest Plus thing on YouTube, Fridays, we have deep dives in topics that we're not publicly discussing. There's also some videos already available. And then last Friday of the month, we're also meeting on Zoom. And there you can ask me questions. We see each other. And it's really off the grid, so to speak. So no topics are forbidden in that regard, in normal, of course, imagination. So again, thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow I'll see you either from here or from there, but I'll see you. And and we continue from there on. And please expect your email to come shortly. So thank you for being here. Have a peaceful night. Keep your head on a swivel. Consume actual news and do what's right for you. Okay? Have a good night.